Stand clear of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I'm your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcast app, Spotify, and, of course, on YouTube. We are here with our Week 3 picks currently. Through 2 weeks, hasn't been very kind to us, the NFL, but it's a long season. We're not getting discouraged. You shouldn't be discouraged either. If you turn around after Week 2 and you're done and you tap in and throw the white flag, you're not built for this. We're trying to be built for this. So I'm Pete Kennedy, joining me all year for the picks, of course, my guy, Pat Boyle. Patty B, what's up, my guy?
Yo, what's up, Pete? Let's go, man. We got to start a winning streak here. Week 3, we had the week 1 with all the surprises. Then we had bounce back week 2. There was still a lot of surprises, a lot of collapses, a lot of losses that should have been wins, but excuses are out the door now. Week 3 is when the boys become men. Let's go.
And Pat right now sitting at 3-7 combined. I'm at 4-6 combined. And last but not least, Mark Shenloogian also 3-7. Mark, how you doing today?
Pete, it hasn't been going great these last 2 weeks. 3-7. We have another horrible week like last week. You're going to see me doing this podcast from the street and not in this room because I don't think I can afford to pay rent anymore. So, yeah. But I plan on doing this podcast next week from this exact room, so you can bet on a winning week this week.
There we go. It's only a matter of time. And listen, week 1 and week 2 are the weeks where we're learning all sorts of new stuff about these teams, but we're also making sure that we're cautious, that we're not overreacting to one result, to one score, to one player making a big time play that changed the outcome of a bet, right? Like, for example, Pat made his video. If you haven't seen it, go to his Twitter at PatBoyle44 talking about the Yankee game. He also mentioned his Steelers teaser. He had up to plus 7.5, which was covered the whole time until a last second lateral mistake where the Browns come back and score a touchdown for no reason at all, right? So these types of events, these types of results, they are not the truth. They are not the process. If you put too much emphasis on some of those results, then you just don't have all the answers. You're not going to be able to make the right decision moving forward if you just put all your eggs in the results basket. So without further ado, we're going to get into our picks. First things first, we do have to talk about our friends over at Raycon Wireless Earbuds, because lately, guys, I've been listening to an album called The Forever Story by JID. He is a fantastic rapper, hip-hop artist, and I've known him for a couple of years now. He's been a great feature on many different occasions amongst various artists. This is his first new album that he's put out in a couple of years. It is fantastic, and it sounds the best on my Raycon wireless earbuds. These everyday earbuds look, feel, and sound better than ever. They have optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit, because I hear people talking about earbuds, and I hear people saying, they don't fit my ears. They're uncomfortable. They fall out all the time. Not the case with these optimized gel tips for the perfect in-ear fit. They also give you 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life. Raycons are also priced just right. You get that high-quality audio that we all want, we all need, whether it's a podcast or music, for half the price of other audio brands. It's no wonder Raycon's everyday earbuds have over 50,000 5-star reviews. My favorite feature is the awareness mode or the noise isolation mode, because it depends on where you're at. It depends on what you're doing when you're listening to your music or podcast. If you're out and about walking around, I'm walking my dog, I need to hear what's going on around me. I need to hear if there's a car coming or who knows what. When I'm locked in, I'm tapped in, getting those final notes for my gambling picks on a Thursday night, I got to be in noise isolation mode. I'm in the lab and I'm listening to every single sound. So what can you do to get involved? You can go to buyraycon.com today and use code TBPN15 to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's code TBPN15 at buyraycon.com. Score 15% off. Buyraycon.com, code TBPN15. All right, let's talk about our picks here. Pete Kennedy, Pat Boyle, and Mark Shenloogian are live. Pat, why don't you kick us off? I feel the confidence spewing from all of us for week 3. So, Pat, hit us with a winner off the jump.
Yeah, let's go 2 teams that I think have very, very slim chances of losing. So, money line parlay. Let's go with the Chiefs on the road against Indianapolis. And when this line first came out and it was 6.5, it seemed like the most public underdog play I've seen probably in the first 3 weeks. And that is, and like you see like 6.5, and as somebody now that we wrestle with ourselves, like, okay, desperation mode versus how well the Chiefs have played, but we know there's some concerns with the Chiefs still, even through 2 games in terms of the defense and replacing Tyreek Hill. In the first, literally my first feeling was 6.5. I was like, wow, feels like a spot where the Colts come out, season feels like it's on the line, and they give you a hell of a battle. That being said, Pete, and this line has reflected what I feel is the sentiment for a lot of bettors, and that it feels like a very public play for the Colts. Now, look, the spread, could they cover? It's now 5.5 here on DraftKings. Could they cover it? Perhaps. If they're able to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor. But I think overall, it's too simple, and I've watched too much football. Unfortunately, I've watched too much Colts football here over the first 2 weeks to just chalk it up and say, oh, they're going to bounce back. No, they have a lot of problems going on right now. That offensive line, Quentin Nelson, he's basically the only one that's been performing. Otherwise, that offensive line has not done anything in terms of establishing a superior run game like they had last year. And then you go to the fact that, look, I said it all offseason. I said the fact that they were kicked Carson Wentz to the curb and thought Matt Ryan in his mid-30s, in the twilight of his career is all of a sudden, going to be the savior for them and get them to a Super Bowl. No way. And it has absolutely reflected that in the first couple of weeks. Now you got Michael Pittman, who seems to be, close to 100% now. Can that make a difference for them? Sure. But look, Chiefs are very, very good. They've answered so many of the questions here in the first 2 weeks about the concerns that we had for them. The defense looks like it picked up where it left off in the second half of last year. And look, that pass rush is playing as well as it has in the first 2 weeks. So Chris Jones and Frank Clark getting after Matt Ryan. He's probably going to throw 1, maybe 2 picks. So look, I love just asking the Chiefs to win this game, I think is close to a lock. And then just like Joe Burrow and the Bengals aren't panicking, I am not panicking either. We've seen how pathetic the offensive line has been here through the first 2 weeks. I understand that. I understand that there's some problems. And again, when you look at the Jets and you look at this spread, is this something that, Joe Flacco could potentially cover at +6? Again, maybe, but the Jets to win this game, I know they beat the Bengals last year. I know it was the legend of Mike White that did it. Not happening again this year. It's not happening again. I expect the Bengals offensive line to be a little bit better than they've been the first couple of weeks. Burrow's going to get back on the same page with Jamar Chase. And the Jets pass rush is nowhere near as good as the Cowboys with Micah Parsons, coming after Burrow. So I expect, for a big bounce back here, then work out a lot of kinks, a lot of the issues they had in the first 2 weeks. And I simply still believe that the Jets are not that good. They should be 0-2, if not for that miracle comeback against the Browns. So Chiefs money line, Bengals money line, -101.
A get-right spot for the Bengals, a continued dominant spot for the Chiefs. And Gus Bradley is the name that has to be mentioned with the Colts defense. Mahomes has experience against him. Mahomes has success against him. So for all that mumbo-jumbo about the Colts figuring it out in week 3, Patrick Mahomes has something to say about it. Mark Shenloogian, why don't you hit us with your first pick of week 3?
Well, Pat kind of stole my thunder. My first pick is as well parlaying the Kansas City Chiefs with the Cincinnati Bengals money line at -101 right now on DraftKings. Look, I'm not going to get into everything Pat said because he pretty much laid it out. The Colts, honestly, this line seems like the biggest trap of the NFL season. I don't know how this is 5.5. It's honestly crazy, but I'm going to go with and say Vegas has this one insanely wrong. I think the Chiefs just destroy them. I don't know what's going on with the Colts right now. They're trying to work Matt Ryan with the new offense, and it's just not working right now. You get shut out by Jacksonville 1 week, I don't see you beating Kansas City the next. And then you've got the Cincinnati Bengals, who, Joe Burrow has scrubbed his Instagram, scrubbed his Twitter. I heard he's even stopped smoking cigars in the locker room after the game. Hopefully this is the week they figure it out. I mean, it has to, right? The Jets should be 0-2, as Pat said. I can't see the Bengals going 0-3. So Bengals Chiefs money line parlay -101, pick 1. Let's get back on the road to victory here.
So a locked in pick between Pat and Shen doesn't happen every day. You guys have shared some of the same legs, but this is the first bet that you guys have the same exact odds, the same exact bet. Chiefs money line, Bengals money line. Hopefully there's no blow up spot for you where Joe Flacco is being deemed the savior again, because I think you guys might be doing it from a closet and covering your face because you'll be embarrassed if that happens again. But listen, that's a game that makes sense to me, and I think everybody loves that pick. Hopefully it's one of those loving picks that doesn't bite you in the ass, right? So I like that. I'll move on to my first pick. My first pick is going to be Raiders -2 at the Tennessee Titans. This is a mixture pick of a fade of the Tennessee Titans, who I think are not very good. And plus the Raiders are going to figure it out how to finish a game. They were in it against the Chargers. They were obviously in it against the Cardinals and should have won that, would have won that in many of the various outcomes if you replay that game over and over again. I think this team's just better, right? You look at the Titans now too. They got smoked by the Buffalo Bills. A lot of teams are going to get smoked by the Bills this year. The Titans also struggled with the Giants. They can't move the ball. The offense is not very successful. And even if Hunter Renfrow is out for the Las Vegas Raiders, I don't really care. That might mean that Devontae Adams gets peppered even more, and that's a win for the Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr is the better quarterback in this matchup. The offense for the Raiders is better. The pass rush for the Raiders is going to make Tannehill's life difficult like it was last week against the Bills. So this is a mixture pick, a fade of the Titans, who I don't think are very good. If this game was played 6 weeks down the road, I think the Raiders are a 5.5, 6.5 point favorite. That's how much better I think the Raiders are. The Raiders aren't the Bills, but they're sure as hell better than the New York Giants. So Raiders -2 at the Tennessee Titans. The Titans stink.
Yeah, you know what, Pete? Unfortunately, I have to jump off my Raiders train here in terms of a betting standpoint for a week. They've got to show me something, right? Because they should be 1-1. They were one of the 3 epic collapses last Sunday, 20-0 lead at half against Arizona. You'd expect them to bounce back here at home. And again, you know, I talked about there's being on the wrong side, and then there's being on the wrong side with the Tennessee Titans, who I thought were going to show you a lot more against the Buffalo Bills. And unfortunately, they are not the same team. So, and I thought Vrabel was going to coach them up better. It was a disaster. So, you know, look, do they have, now that these teams are both in desperation mode, do they, you know, show up? You know, I like that pick because I think the Raiders are still the better team. So at home, they should be able to win that game. All right, pick number 2 for me. Let's go back to the well. Patty B, same game teaser. And give me the Ravens +3.5 and under 51.5 against the New England Patriots. That is -110 odds. First, let's talk about some injuries here because I know both of these teams are banged up. Now, is J.K. Dobbins, you know, going to suit it up on Sunday? That's left to be seen. Otherwise, it's going to be Kenyon Drake, Mike Davis. But look, Lamar Jackson, it starts and ends there with me on the offense in terms of backing the Ravens. He is playing at that MVP level. He's having the Aaron Judge season. You know, that was the storyline through 2 weeks. Lamar Jackson has done basically absolutely nothing wrong. He has been phenomenal. He showed it again last week against Miami. It was the defense that cost them this game. And that is where I'm taking the insurance here, getting them up to a, 3.5 points as a dog because, look, they were absolutely pathetic trying to close that game out against Miami. Now, of course, the Patriots are not the same building, let alone the same room with the weapons that the New England Patriots have versus the Dolphins. But Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters, limited practice on Thursday, waiting to see what they did on Friday. But obviously they're going to be questionable going into the weekend. And that secondary was torched. I thought they were going to be stepping up and having a tremendous year. Again, could it be Waddle and Tyreek Hill that caused a ton of issues that other teams won't? Perhaps. But either way, I think even if New England somehow squeaks this one out, it's not by more than a field goal. This offense still has a lot of issues. We saw that against Pittsburgh. We've seen it for 2 weeks now. I mean, they're averaging 12 points a game. They have a lot of trouble moving the ball. And when they get in the red zone, it seems like all they can do is kick field goals. So that Ravens pass rush and the run defense should at least be able to once again slow down New England. And again, I'm taking the under 51.5 here, getting that up a couple points just because I don't see any way the Patriots score more than 24, 27 points in this one. If that, even if they get to 20. So I would expect the Ravens to win this game. I would expect them to win it. I would hope quite comfortably. But again, this is what the same game teaser is for. So if the Ravens lose, it's not going to be by more than a field goal. Patriots aren't putting up more than 27 points. So Ravens +3.5, under 51.5, -110 odds.
Mark?
Leave it to Pat to Lamar Jackson plays 2 games. We're going to compare it to the 150-game body of work judges put together so far for this season. And not to mention he blew a 35-14 second-half lead last week as well for the Ravens. But
right, because that was his fault at all because they basically scored on every single drive except for one.
So are you going to credit Tua then? Because you can't have it both ways here.
I did credit Tua. I said on the podcast earlier this week, I said he had a great game. He had a great fourth quarter. albeit those touchdowns he threw were underthrown basically every single time. So he's still not a great quarterback, still doesn't have a good arm. Again, I think I don't know if it was Peters or Humphrey, is literally all they have to do is turn around on that underthrown ball at 35-21 and it's picked, and that's the game. And there is no comeback.
One ball out of the 6 touchdowns he threw and 500 yards he threw for. But hey,
I said I gave him credit, but I mean, I'm not saying Lamar Jackson is going to go on and have 5,000 yards and 70 touchdowns this year, but through 2 games, he's on pace to have a phenomenal season.
I was just asking for one good drive in the second half to put the game away, but I digress. We'll go to my second pick. Ja'Marr Chase, anytime touchdown this week against the New York Jets and that laughable secondary that they have. Look, there's a couple of ways this game plays out. The obvious one, the Bengals blow the Jets out, where Ja'Marr Chase is definitely going to score if the Bengals put up anywhere in the 3 to 4 touchdowns that I think they'll put up in this game. Or the Bengals get into a slugfest with the Jets and Joe Flacco, in which they're going to have to throw the ball over the place anyway, and Ja'Marr Chase scores in that scenario as well. Amari Cooper went for over 100 yards and a touchdown last week against the Jets. There's no reason that with the Bengals being 0-2, that Ja'Marr Chase will not have a high level of urgency in this one, as well as Joe Burrow to perform well in this game to get him the ball. So, and then you get the plus odds on top of it, plus 110. So give me Ja'Marr Chase plus 110 anytime TD this week against the Jets for pick number 2.
Straight up prop for pick number 2, Mark. I like it. I mean,
it just screams value to me, Pete.
Yeah, and with Ja'Marr Chase too, it's one of those things like you almost like when he doesn't score a week before, right? Because it feels like he's going to end up with 13, 14 touchdowns this year. And based off odds, if he don't score one week, he might score the next very well. Plus 110, not bad juice either. On to my third pick. I'm going with another straight bet. I'm going to go Falcons pick 'em at the Seattle Seahawks. The Falcons have proven something this year. They can move the ball. They can run the ball a little bit, and they can make things happen with Marcus Mariota at quarterback. And the Seahawks, on the flip side, cannot. They've played one half of good offensive football this season. Other than that, they've been basically abysmal, unable to move the ball, unable to get their playmakers in space. The run game is non-existent. Right now in the league, the Seahawks are second to last in yards per game at 234 yards per game. Only team worse is the Chicago Bears. The Bears are a laughing stock offensively right now. The Seahawks should be considered pretty close to the same thing. The Falcons, on the other hand, Marcus Mariota is not a game breaker. He's not going to absolutely light it up. You don't expect a 6 touchdown performance from Marcus Mariota like Tua Tagovailoa, but you do expect the run game with Cordero Patterson and himself to be cooking. You do expect Kyle Pitts at some point to get involved with this game, and Drake London's looked really strong as a rookie wide receiver down in Atlanta. So I think this is not priced correctly again. Another one like my first pick. The Falcons, if this was in a couple weeks, would be minus 3 points, even in Seattle. That's how bad I think the Seahawks are looking right now, and how surprisingly solid that the Falcons are. So I'm going Falcons pick 'em at the Seattle Seahawks. Mariota over Geno Smith. Is that even worth saying? I'm not sure, but I'm riding the Falcons with their impressive competition level so far this year. And now they play a bad team, and they're going to look like a decent one themselves.
All right, pick number 3. Let's go down to Landover, Maryland. Give me the Patty B same game teaser once again. Now, look, I've been on the Eagles train since before the season. I said they're going to win the NFC East. I said I expected Jalen Hurts to step up this year. They have, but let's wait a minute here, because this spread to me is borderline out of control. 6.5 on the road against the Washington Commanders. And to me, the over-under is slightly a little low too, considering both of these teams have put up a ton of points so far through 2 weeks. So let's go. Let's get Washington up to 11.5. Commanders plus 11.5. Get the over down to 37.5. That's minus 110 odds. I was dead wrong saying the Titans as a big underdog could cover and beat the Bills. But I'm going to say this again. I think the Commanders probably could cover and win this game against the Eagles. But I will take the insurance when I can get it here. Again, look, Jalen Hurts has looked phenomenal. He has looked fantastic. A.J. Brown has been everything they hoped he has been so far. And the running game, with Sanders and then getting Gainwell off the bench there as the number 2 has been really a good compliment. Plus, you got Hurts running the ball. We know what he can do. And then that defense, I think that defense last week, I don't want to put too much stock in it. Slay was great. Maddox was great, being advantageous, picking off Kirk Cousins. But let's be honest, that was picturesque, quintessential Monday Night Football Kirk Cousins, just throwing shit up for grabs, making awful decisions. So I don't want to say now all of a sudden that Philadelphia's defense is an elite, is an elite team yet as they're on the defensive side. Plus, look, Carson Wentz has been throwing the damn football pretty well, right? The connection with Scary Terry is still there. Jahan Dotson, the rookie from Penn State, has made some incredible leaps and bounds so far early on in the year. And look, I mean, they got Curtis Samuel coming out of the slot, who's been a weapon. This offense is pretty damn good. Plus, you still got the running back duo of Gibson McKissick, which they haven't been running the ball as nearly well as they usually do. So you've got all that going on for Washington. I expect them to be able to put up at least 20, 21 points against the Eagles here. And then, they're still getting after the quarterback. I know Chase Young's out for the year, but Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen in the middle, and Montez Sweat coming off the edge, they're still averaging 2.5 sacks per game. That's one of the best in the National Football League. And to me, it's going to come down to whether or not this secondary can slow down A.J. Brown. If they can limit that deep ball from Quez Watkins, he's had some questionable tags on him in practice this week. So if he doesn't play, I like it a little bit better. But, so far through 2 games, as somebody that has Devontae Smith on my fantasy team, didn't even touch the ball week 1. Monday night, they got him a lot more involved. But I think if they can limit A.J. Brown, you take a huge element out of this Eagles offense. And I would expect Washington and Riverboat Ron to come up with a good game plan to keep this game close. So Commanders plus 11.5. I still think there is a decent amount of points in this one. Over 37.5. That's minus 110.
Yeah, with Carson Wentz, you expect some points. Even if they're losing, he's kind of best when he's down big and gets to just sling. You might get some interceptions, but you might get some spectacular plays where they put some points on the board and backdoor cover, even if they're down big. The weird thing about that Commanders-Lions game last week, and I bet the Commanders +1, I didn't feel terrible about it. I was just upset that I chose Commanders over Jaguars because that was my 6th pick if I were to make one. The running attack for Detroit on paper looks like it had a good game. But Amon-Ra St. Brown had a 58-yard run, and DeAndre Swift had a 50-yard run. That's 108 yards of their 191 on the ground. So DeAndre Swift only had 6 yards on 4 carries if you take away his big, long one there. So will the Eagles' rushing attack, which has been so damn strong, do a more consistent and better job? I think it will, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your pick is bad, because if they're running the ball well, they're not putting up crooked numbers very often, and they're not putting up quick scores very often. I think it'll be a slower grind. You'll still get the over, but it won't be like all of a sudden the Eagles are up 30-0 with a bunch of big plays. I think it'll be much closer than that. So I like that pick, Patty.
All right. Looks like it's my turn. Pick 3. Minnesota Vikings +3.5 for leg 1 of this 2-team parlay. Tough loss last week in primetime with Kirk Cousins. He continues to show us all what he's made of in those spots. But they are back in Minnesota at home for this one, taking on the Detroit Lions in a bounce-back spot. Lions will also be playing their first road game of the season here, so very interesting to see how they perform on the road as opposed to at home. I think the Vikings just get back on track this week in this divisional battle. And if they do somehow lose this game, I don't think it will be by more than a field goal. So I think Vikings at 3.5 should be solid enough. Get Dalvin Cook going in this game and then open it up for Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. Leg 2, Los Angeles Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. That had to be the flukiest win in week 2 outside of that miracle the Jets pulled at the horn. Down 20-0 in Vegas. They somehow come back, win the game. Kyler Murray runs around for 3.5 hours on the 1-2 point conversion and gets in, but that's not happening this week. The Arizona Cardinals, if you look at their history, they have a hard enough time beating the Rams when they have DeAndre Hopkins, and he's still not back this week. Aaron Donald will get to Kyler Murray, and so will the rest of the Los Angeles Rams. They'll get to 2-1 this week. They just have Arizona's number. And like I said, I've seen enough of the Cardinals offense without Hopkins. I still have no idea how they won that game last week. So give me Vikings +3.5 and give me the Rams. Parlay that together for -110, practically your normal spread bet for anything else during the week for pick 3.
Interesting. You basically took 9 points for the Vikings and then only 3.5 for the Rams. So it still averages out to a pretty standard teaser odds. Obviously, you just said -110. But
what are the Vikings right now?
-6.
When I looked at this a couple nights ago, this was 3.5 for them.
Yeah, they're currently
has the line ballooned that much for Minnesota.
Yeah, it's -6 right now on DraftKings. I'm looking at it as we speak, but
Well, that's interesting.
Your odds might not be -110 currently.
Might not anymore.
Yeah, because like right now you have 9.5 points on the spread for the Vikings and 3.5 on the spread for the Rams. So it's probably more of like a -120, -125, but nonetheless, like it's still relatively close to that threshold that we're looking for. But it's just another interesting way to look at the teaser life, right? To look at that parlay life where you're putting together two different numbers that you like. You don't have to do 6 and 6. You don't have to do 5.5 and 5.5. You can do, 8 points on one, 4 points on the other. It does work like that too. So that's what you ended up doing there. Even if
it's -114 right now, actually. Pete, just checked.
There you go.
-114.
Not too shabby. All right, on to my third pick. I'm going with another straight bet. I'm on the straight bets this week. I'm not getting too fancy. There's a bunch of games that I like. Right now, I'm going with another favorite. It's the Ravens -3 at the Patriots, similar to what Pat was describing with his same game teaser there. He had +3.5 under 51.5. I think the Ravens are just straight up a much better team than the New England Patriots. Even without the complete health of the defensive backfield for Baltimore, you look at this bunch and you say the Patriots are not the type of team to take advantage of those injuries. They're not going to all of a sudden be pushing the ball down the field with great success because they haven't done it even for a second yet this year, other than one big pass to Nelson Aguilar, and that's about it. It's been dinking and dunking and struggling to get points on the board for the Patriots. The Ravens offense, even with no running game outside of Lamar Jackson right now, is reeling. And the Patriots defense, not a juggernaut at this point. Yeah, they have the opportunity to get better throughout the season as we move on. But right now, this offense for Baltimore is too damn strong. I don't care that it's in New England. I take Lamar Jackson, and whoever he has out there as Bateman starts to look better and better. Duvernay looks like he can be a consistent weapon for them. And you always got Mark Andrews wreaking havoc from the inside out. So the Ravens -3 is a pick I really like here. Obviously, I wish it was 2.5, but I think the Ravens win this by a touchdown. And it comes down to the fact that the Patriots cannot keep up with Lamar in any way offensively. So even if the Ravens defense looks mediocre, I still see them outscoring the Patriots by a good enough chunk to cover that -3. So Ravens -3 at the New England Patriots. That's my third pick. And before we move on to your next pick, Pat, we actually have some other notes, some other words to say from our friends. We're talking about them throughout this whole podcast. It's DraftKings Sportsbook. The NFL action's in full swing here at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. We're talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do. So use that wisely, right? You don't have to make a super slick bet. You don't have to bet a spread. You just got to bet on any NFL team to win. If they do, you get $200 in free bets. If that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. If you're listening to my guy, Pat Boyle, with his same game teaser, that fits up into the same game parlay action. You get one that's normally -110, then boom, step it up to get that 100% boost. Up to 100% on any of those plays with payouts bigger than ever. Why bet on football anywhere else? To make things even sweeter, you can throw down all stepped up same game parlays once per game all season long. So that deal is not going anywhere. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use promo code TBPM to get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code TBPN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details. And Pat Boyle, pick number 4. We're flying through.
All right, so I was thinking about doing another same game teaser with the Lions. The only thing that scared me away is the over/under. I have no idea what you're going to get in terms of the scoring in this game. I could see it being another 30-30 shootout. I could see this being in the teens with the defenses. It's going to come down to the red zone, and that's where I feel confident with how the Lions have performed in the red zone on offense this year, and that is why I'm going to do a spread teaser here. Let's get the Lions up to +10.5. And then, like Mark was saying, I agree with everything he was saying about the Rams. I'm actually going to get them up to 3.5 as a dog. I think they win this game, but again, I'll take the insurance whenever I can get it. So I think the Rams, if they lose this game, it ain't going to be by more than a field goal. So Lions +10.5, parlayed with the Rams +3.5. That's -103 odds. really quickly on Detroit, they've been that plucky, hard-nosed team that we kind of thought they'd be under Dan Campbell. And, through the first two games, they get out to a huge lead against Washington and then nearly blow it. And in week one, they are getting blown out by Philadelphia, and they come back and they make it tough. I think you see that somewhere, the balance somewhere in the middle here. I think the ebbs and flows are a little bit more back and forth rather than one-sided one way and totally lopsided the other way in the second half. And kind of the same thing with Minnesota too, right? Like they got up to a big lead early against Green Bay. They held it. And then they were getting blown out basically from the start, midway through the second quarter when Philly went up by 2 scores and Kirk Cousins just started pressing every time they got in the red zone. But look, Jared Goff has been phenomenal. He really has. He's been phenomenal. That offense has been great. One of the best passing attacks through the first 2 weeks. Amon-Ra St. Brown, I tweeted the other day, half jokingly, half serious, Amon-Ra St. Brown for MVP. He's been fantastic, especially in the red zone, the plays he's making. And Pete, you said the running game hasn't been that great, but they do have a propensity to break off huge runs, whether it's DeAndre Swift, whether it's on the wide receiver ends around. They're averaging 180 yards on the ground so far through the first 2 weeks. So it's the third best rushing attack through the first 2 weeks. So they even if they don't get consistent runs, they get the big chunk plays so far. And this is a Minnesota Vikings defense that I think is suspect, that I think can be had. I think Harrison Smith, he's banged up. If he doesn't play, that is a huge loss for that secondary. That can open up Goff for throwing over the top. And Minnesota, their cover defense, their nickel packages are going to be hurting. And then you look at the Detroit defense. Yeah, they haven't been really good, at all. But, again, if they can get a little bit of pressure on Cousins, we've seen so far he is turnover prone. Sunday, 1 o'clock window, this feels like a really good bounce back spot for Minnesota. But again, I'm expecting Detroit to continue to be the type of team they've been, and that's been cover kings. That's been teams that play well when they're dogs, 2-0 against the spread this year. I think they make this a close game. And again, I think they keep it within 10. And then with the Rams, again, I'm not going to go too far into it. I think they're just overall the better team. Like Mark said, they've owned Arizona, especially without DeAndre Hopkins. This matchup becomes even more lopsided. James Conner's not 100%. And I think Arizona, again, fortunate to win that game when they were getting blown out at half against Vegas. I still think they have a lot of issues, and this Rams defense should be up to the task against an offense missing its number one weapon, and Rondell Moore is most likely going to be out again on Sunday. So Rams plus 3.5, Lions plus 10.5, minus 103 odds.
Okay. Pick 4 for me. Another 2-team parlay, because what else are we going to do here? Buffalo Bills money line, leg 1. Look, I'm going to ride the train until the wheels fall off here. I mean, has any team looked better through the first 2 weeks? The answer is no. I'd be much more concerned with Buffalo if they were playing a 1-1 or 0-2 team this week, because maybe you think that, they're feeling themselves a little bit and they have a little bit of a letdown on the road. But this is a divisional game against the 2-0 Miami Dolphins. And who would have thought you'd be saying that before the season? Miami had a very emotional long comeback last week, down 35-14, came back 142-38. The Buffalo Bills are not the Baltimore Ravens. If Lamar Jackson can throw all over you, Josh Allen will definitely be able to throw all over you. And I know Buffalo's defense is a little banged up. They might be without both starting safeties, but Jordan Poyer probably will go in this one, I'm thinking. Micah Hyde's already been rolled out. Buffalo defense is overall miles better than Baltimore's. So give me the Bills to continue to stay hot here, make a statement, go to 3-0, and get the win down to Miami for leg 1. And then leg 2, look, I know the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they're a little banged up at the wide receiver position, but plus 7.5 here should be enough against Green Bay, especially with the way they destroyed them last year. Devontae Adams is not on the Green Bay Packers anymore. And the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, outside of that garbage time touchdown they gave up last week to the Saints when it was 20-3, have given up a total of 6 points up until that point on the season, shutting down 2 pretty good offenses. And one performance at home for Rodgers against the Bears at Lambeau is not going to convince me that offense is back and rolling. So give me the Bills money line and give me the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus 7.5 in this one. That should be more than enough points. I still think they went outright, but 7.5, that should be easy money. So you parlay those two together, and that's sitting around minus 110 right now.
Very well. Ride the Bills until the wheels fall off. I think a lot of people will have a similar attitude. When you look like such a juggernaut, it's hard to stay away. That is one of the straight bets that people have been talking about. Maybe the Dolphins can keep it close and end up covering that number. But getting them at money line, obviously, you're going to feel good about that. And Packers, Bucks, both offenses aren't very explosive right now. So getting more than a touchdown on that number feels really, really nice. So I like that bet. Shen, and on to my fourth pick. I'm going with my only non-straight bet of the week. I'm going to go with a teaser here. I'm going to take the Panthers plus 8.5 and the Cowboys plus 8 on Monday night. I've teased the Panthers before and it worked out. Really, I maybe a little bit higher on the Panthers than some other people right now, and it hasn't turned into any wins, but it has turned into them playing close games, especially against teams that are not world beaters, right? Like the Browns are a good team. We know they're going to be solid even without Deshaun Watson. They're not world beaters. The Panthers are right there in it, had a chance to win. The Panthers are right there in it against the Giants, another team that's not very good, and they could have, should have, would have won that one as well. Now they play the Saints. Jameis Winston's banged up. Their offense hasn't looked that spectacular. Their defense is looking much more normal than it has in years past. I think this Panthers game with the Saints is going to be very close, and you get it up to 8.5. You get through the 3, through the 7 on the teaser, up to 8. This is as much a bet on the Panthers getting a little bit better every week with Baker Mayfield at the helm as it is a bet against the Saints being able to completely put a team away, especially in division like the Carolina Panthers. So I love that, getting 8.5. As for the Cowboys on Monday night, they're playing the New York Giants. You're getting through the 3, through the 7, again up to plus 8 for the Cowboys. This pass rush has been giving fits to all of their opponents so far this year. It's going to be the same story again Monday night for Daniel Jones, and he's obviously prone to those big mistakes. The Giants definitely have a chance to win this game. Me and Pat discussed their opportunity to truly get to 4-0, which is still mind-blowing to say out loud, but that's why I love this teaser leg, getting them up to plus 8 are the Cowboys, because the Giants can still win their stupid, ugly, unimpressive way with their crappy offense and their mediocre to somewhat decent defense. They can win this game with ease. They can win by a touchdown, and I can still feel wonderful about Cowboys plus 8 with that defense's ability to make plays, to Cooper Rush's ability to not make the big mistake, to move the ball down the field. He surprised some people getting CeeDee Lamb involved, getting Noah Brown involved big time on the offense last week. I think this is a great spot for the Cowboys to cover the plus 8. I think there's a chance for them to win it. I'm staying far away from that -1 unless it's Monday night and I'm feeling frisky and I had a good Sunday. I'll probably throw something down, maybe a same game parlay. But as for a bet, Panthers plus 8.5. I love it. Cowboys plus 8. Get through those key numbers. Feel wonderful about it. That's my teaser for the week. Patty B, your final pick, Pat. What do you think of that, though? What do you think about the Cowboys plus 8 real quick?
I mean, you would think that the Giants, can't blow anybody out, let alone, win in the past. And this year now they're a different team under Brian Daboll, right? I don't think they're 2-0 under any other previous head coach, but at the same time, they still don't have the weapons to blow teams out. I think Dallas's defense, especially with Dak getting hurt week 1, only giving up 19 to Tampa Bay, which doesn't look all that mightily impressive right now in hindsight, but still, and then the defensive performance they put on against Cincinnati, you got to give them credit. So I think the Giants are going to struggle to put up points once again. That over-under is what, 30, 37, 38 right now? I mean, I'd be surprised how the team gets to 20. I'm going to tell you that. So I like that.
Yeah, and it's really just like the Panthers Saints is as much of a faith bet in the Cowboys or Panthers as it is a fade of the Saints and Giants' ability to win by almost double-digit points, right? Like the Giants win maybe once a year by 10 points. Like there might be years in the past couple they haven't won any games by double digits. I'd have to check. So I that's why I went for it, and I really like that one. So Patty B, why don't you give us your last pick for week 3?
All right, so last pick. I was toying on whether or not to go straight under on this bet, considering all of the people on offense that are going to be missing. But, again, when I also have a pretty decent lean that I think this team's not going to get blown out. I think they're going to win the game, but let alone get blown out. I don't think there's any chance. So I am kind of on the opposite of Mark here in this one. I'm going Packers plus 7.5 and under 47.5. -110 odds. I mean, look, again, let's start with the injuries for Tampa Bay. I mean, my God, is there any more team more banged up than them right now? Evans suspended. Godwin's basically out already. I would say there's 1% shot he plays. Julio Jones is a game-time decision. Russell Gage is playing hurt. Rashad Perriman is limited. Leonard Fournette is limited, and we know Gio Bernard is out for Tampa Bay. Plus, their guards have been terrible. Donovan Smith, the left tackle, is banged up, and Akeem Hicks on the defensive side has already been ruled out again in this one. You look at Green Bay; they're not in a much better spot. Lazard questionable, but did play last week. Expected to play this week. Watkins and Cobb maybe more so, on the negative side in terms of the faith you have in them playing. And then, I mean, look, so is David Bakhtiari going to get his ass back on the field once and for all and for good, or what? Because this is a spot where they need him against that Tampa Bay front seven, against that Tampa Bay pass rush. If Rodgers, was there ever a time to have his number one guy protecting his blind side? It is this Sunday. Hopefully Bakhtiari plays, and gives them a little bit more protection. But look, both these offenses have struggled big time through 2 weeks. And when I look at how this game, I expect this game to shake out. I think the Green Bay Packers got away from the run game in week 1 against Minnesota. They got down early. There was no Lazard. Christian Watson is dropping wide open touchdowns. And then, not that Chicago is a formidable opponent, but I think the game plan, the game script, getting back to the run game, getting Aaron Jones, getting A.J. Dillon as the bruiser. I thought it was a beautiful mix for them. I thought they handled that game. They managed that game incredibly well. And, look, Matt LaFleur, they were dogs. They were 3-point dogs to open up. He's 9-3 against the spread as an underdog. Now, this might even go to a pick 'em by the time Sunday hits. But either way, in spots like this, I'm going to rely on the Packers here to show up for the defense, which has been pretty good so far through 2 weeks, to give you another solid performance, especially with all the injuries Brady's offense has. I mean, look, who's Tom throwing the ball? Who's he throwing the ball to on Sunday? Scotty Miller and Cameron Brate? I mean, they tried that a bunch on Sunday against New Orleans. I mean, it looked like they ran like 6-7 basically fly routes with Scotty Miller. It looks like that's how limited this offensive game plan is right now. And I think the Packers defense is good enough to keep Tampa Bay probably under 21, 24 points. And, again, Rodgers, if he's throwing to Lazard, they've got that run game. I think you could trust their offense more than you can Tampa Bay's right now. And again, what is the line moving show you? Tampa Bay's undefeated at home, and the spread has gone from 3.5 to 1.5, 1. So I think the line's moving in the right direction. And, again, I'm going back to the well with the same game teaser here. Packers plus 7.5, under 47.5, minus 110 odds.
I'm seeing even in some places it's down to a pick 'em, Pat. So that even more so it lends to your favor there with the Packers. And now you and Shen are, kind of middling each other here. You both can easily win this bet, frankly. And two offenses that we've looked at as juggernauts over the past couple of years, Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, for even longer than that in general. Now it's defensive run game battles a little bit. It's going to be a lot of Leonard Fournette. It's going to be a lot of Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. Now, the Bucs have had one of the better run defenses in the league for the past 2 years, but the Packers' run game is so multiple, and Aaron Jones gets involved in more ways than just running with the pass game. So I love it there, and I think both of you guys have a chance to hit your legs. So, Shen, why don't you hit us with your last pick?
All right. Last pick, a little bit of an NFC East showdown here. Two legs. Wow. We'll start with the Philadelphia Eagles on the road in Landover, Maryland. Pat, you talked about this game, but I think you missed the biggest headline coming into this game, and that's Carson Wentz will be going up against his former team. I have zero faith in Carson Wentz, and I have even less than zero faith in him in big games. He still has 0 playoff wins to his name for anybody who's counting. And that performance in Jacksonville in week 18 last year, do I need to even go into that? That's why he's not on the Colts anymore as it is. And the Philadelphia Eagles have looked fantastic the first 2 weeks. Look, I know the Commanders beat Jacksonville week 1, but they were down in the fourth quarter in that game with about 7-8 minutes to go, and they got beat by the Lions last week in Detroit. With the way Philadelphia is playing right now and Jalen Hurts is leading that team, I think the Eagles will be just as up for this game to just stick it to Wentz more so than anything else, and they'll be on their A game. So give me the Eagles to get out to a 3-0 start. They're just as hot as anybody else in the league right now. And then, Pete, you alluded to this in one of your earlier picks. Dallas Cowboys plus 7.5 Monday night. You have, I think, plus 8. I've got plus 7.5. These two picks together are minus 115 as of right now. Look, the New York Giants, 2 words for them. Total frauds. 2-0, total frauds. They've got 2 wins coming into this year. I was shooting for the second pick in the draft, not 2 wins through the first 2 weeks. I have no idea how they beat the Titans. The Panthers, week 2, I have a little bit more of a clue, but that's the Carolina Panthers. I know Cooper Rush is playing quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys, but hey, if you can go into Minnesota and beat Kirk Cousins with Justin Jefferson, there's zero reason you can't go into your division rival and beat Daniel freaking Jones. He's horrible. And I'll say it until I'm blue in the face. He's absolutely horrible. Micah Parsons and the Dallas defense, who have looked fantastic through the first 2 weeks, in my opinion, will feast on this Giants team. Who's Daniel Jones going to throw the ball to here? Kenny Golladay got 2 snaps last week or something crazy like that? And you're telling me I can get Dallas plus 7.5 here? They don't even have to win the game. This is too easy. Philadelphia money line, Dallas Cowboys plus 7.5 in a game. I think they win anyway. Minus 115. Lock it, load it, cash it.
In case you guys didn't know, Mark Shenloogian is a New York Giants fan. In case you didn't know, you wouldn't maybe be able to tell. But no, it's fair. It's fair because I feel the same way, Mark. Like, I'm with you. It's obvious that they're not a legitimate 2-0, 4-0 type team. They're not that good. They can't really score still. Like, they've won these games by the skin of their teeth, and they just are lucky to still have an easy schedule to this point. When they play the Packers in a couple weeks, what's the spread going to be? 9.5, 10.5? It's going to be enormous because they can't score, right? So I'm with you, and that's why I went Cowboys plus 8. I just don't think they have what it takes to win by more than a touchdown against anybody in the league. That's how bad they look offensively sometimes and how lost they look. And for every time they have a big play and for every time Saquon Barkley blows one up and goes for 50, yeah, it's exciting. It's fun. Giants fans want to hang their hat on it. It's not enough. It's not enough to be consistently good in this league, and they're not that team. They're not that good. So I'm with you, Mark, as well. I'm going to go with my last pick here. Another straight bet for you guys. My fourth straight bet, my fourth road straight bet. Jaguars plus 3.5 at the Los Angeles Chargers. This was unfortunate timing. If we recorded this last night like we planned to on Thursday night, I would have gotten this number at 6.5. I wanted to take the Jaguars at 6.5 either way. Now Justin Herbert seems to be out on Sunday, so you get the Jaguars at plus 3.5. I mean, listen, for as talented as this Chargers team is, for as great as Justin Herbert is, they don't have the propensity to constantly put teams away. They don't frequently dominate teams from start to finish and end games up by 21 points. It's just not something we've seen very frequently from this team, whether it be coaching from Brandon Staley and his decision-making or Joe Lombardi's conservative style offense with one of the best quarterbacks in the league. It's very frustrating to watch Herbert get stripped of his powers on occasion because they're throwing the ball only 5 yards down the field at a clip. Now Chase Daniels in at quarterback. What do you expect? The same thing. They're not going to be an explosive offense. They're not really that explosive with Justin Herbert. They're not going to be explosive with Chase Daniel. And this Jacksonville Jaguars offense has been sneaky good this year. Trevor Lawrence is taking that step into becoming a true franchise quarterback. The difference between Doug Peterson and Urban Meyer is immense and is showing itself early. Yeah, they're 1-1, but you have to feel really good. Apparently, DVOA has their early numbers out, and Jacksonville's offense is ranked number 2. Really small sample size, obviously, but it's talking to the efficiency that this Jaguars offense is playing with and the ability that Trevor Lawrence has showed from year 1 to year 2 to get the ball out quicker, to get it to his playmakers. And some of those playmakers are better than we want to give credit for. Kirk looks really good. Robinson and Etienne haven't exploded yet, but they're on the precipice. I like the Jaguars at plus 6.5. With the news about Herbert, it's down to 3.5. I still like the Jaguars to cover the field goal, if not win this game outright. I'm going to sprinkle the money line too, but my last pick, Jaguars plus 3.5 at the Los Angeles Chargers. That's what we got. That's 15 picks for you people. Again, 5 from each of us, like we will do all year long. Pat, Shen, how we feeling right now heading into week 3 weekend?
Big bounce back ahead. Again, just to recap, I don't see how either the Chiefs or the Bengals lose. I don't. I think it's going to take another magical performance from Joe Flacco and the Jets. I think people are like, if there's ever been more of an overreaction, and maybe it's because we're in New York and working at the Fan, I've heard all of it all week, like talk of should the Jets stick with Joe Flacco against Zach White? I keep saying Zach White. I said it 2 weeks ago on the pod. Zach Wilson, mixing up Zach Wilson and Mike White. Should they stick with Joe Flacco over Zach Wilson? If he's like, what are we talking about? The Browns had that game in the bag and then totally collapsed. I mean, I could have thrown that touchdown to make it a 6-point game that Flacco threw to Corey Davis. Nobody was even on him. And Joe Flacco, yeah, you got to give him credit, I guess, for that final drive. I mean, you recovered an onside kick. It's not like he had to go the length of the field. He went 50 yards, and the Browns were playing prevent defense not to lose. So, but now all of a sudden, Joe Flacco, should the Jets stick with him? I mean, holy shit. Talk about an overreaction. And I just don't see any way in hell the Bengals offensive line is that pathetic again for the third straight week. So I don't see how that loses. I'm very, very supremely confident in that pick. The Ravens won, unless the Ravens put up 40 points. I don't see how that loses. And I can't wait. I can't wait to have Mark be proven wrong when Carson Wentz steps up in the reunion game and puts in a fantastic performance. I also think Philly's due for a little bit of a regression to the mean here. Again, I was on the train going into the offseason, but now I feel like everybody's on it. Who was it? Coward was saying that the Eagles are the team to beat in the NFC. I mean, let's be real here. So they're a good team. They're not an elite team yet. And I think Washington does a good job with them. Lions, I think they keep it close. Rams, I think they win. No shot they lose by more than a field goal. My least confident one is probably that Packers one. Just because there's so many injuries on the offensive side. But I don't think there's a ton of points. So if there's one bet that loses, if the Bucs win by 10 and it's like a 24-14 game, I'm going to be very upset that I didn't just bet the under straight up. But I'm feeling great, man.
And I appreciate that breakdown, Pat. That was good. But I have a question for you guys. A little trivia here. Without looking too closely to the lines here, what's the biggest line of week 3? What's the biggest spread? Anybody know? Just a number. I don't need to know the game. Just the biggest.
I don't think I've seen one more than 7.
That is correct. The biggest spread is 6.5 this week. After week 2, with a multitude of double-digit spread games, we don't have one spread in week 3 that's even at 7. The highest is the Eagles minus 6.5 against the Commanders, and then we have Bengals minus 6 at Jets, Vikings minus 6 home against the Lions. So very different week this week. So Shen, what is your blow-up spot? What is the one game, I guess anywhere in that -5, -6 range that you think the underdog actually has a chance to win?
Can I just get a quick retort as to what my contemporary said before? How'd that work out last week with the Titans and Bills with you going against me? But we digress.
Wait, you were 1-4 last week. Who are you talking?
Yeah, what are you talking
I had the
about?
Bills. If you go back to the podcast, I said the Bills big, and they slammed the Titans, and Pat had them with the points in his bet.
Okay, Shen. So you take your one hit out of 5, and you're going to try to rub it.
That's Mark's life. That's Mark's life.
You're talking about going against me. That's
you were
exactly
1-4. You have no right.
Let me now answer your other question, Pete, as to how I'm feeling and to what could possibly blow up my spot this week. Pete, I'm feeling like a frat boy heading into the Friday afternoon, heading into Memorial Day weekend. We're going to score some wins and have a hell of a weekend this weekend. Okay. There's nothing blowing me up. Okay. Not anything. Not one thing. It's going to be a fantastic weekend, and just book it.
There we go.
I'll see you all at the cash out window.
Oh my God. The confidence spewing out of Mark Shenloogian's mouth after a 1-4 showing in week 2. You better flip it around, my 3-7 brother. That's not very good. But that's okay. That's great.
Let's also not forget Mark was on the Bears and I was on the Packers, and you got slammed on that one. So,
all right. So all you guys taking your minor wins and trying to rub it in each other's faces. Let's get a winning week out of one of you guys. How about that?
Well, but that was way less of a differential. I lost by 2.5 with that spread. You lost by like 15 or 16. But go ahead.
It's all right.
Loss is a loss, dude.
I'm talking all this smack. I'm only one game ahead of you guys in the standing, so I'm just messing. But 4-6 for me, 3-7 for Pat and Shen. Looking to climb back to 500. If I'm looking for 4-1 this week, I'm hoping for 4-1. I think my blow up spot might be the Falcons or the Raiders here. Just because I think that the Raiders are very public right now, and a lot of people are saying they're just better. But I agree, they're just better. They're going to beat the Titans. So I'm liking our odds for this week. I think we're going to have a good one. Winning week for the boys, for PBS, Pete, Boyle, and Shen. That's all we got. Subway Sports Talk. Thank you for listening. As always, don't forget to subscribe, rate, review on your podcast app. Subscribe, hit the notification bell on YouTube, and then hit us on social media at Subway Sports Talk. We'll be posting some pics there, posting the graphic up there so you can follow along on your Sunday and send us your best locks of the week, because guess what? If you're talking smack about us losing our records, you better put your money where your mouth is and talk to us about some of your picks. All right, people. So I want to hear it at Subway Sports Talk, at MShen26 for Mark Shenloogian, at Pat Boyle 44 for Pat, at Pete Kennedy 2Ys for me. So thanks for listening, everybody. Week 3 is here. We'll be back next week. Talk all sorts of stuff, baseball, football, the whole 9. Subway Sports Talk. Thanks for listening. Cheers.